Smart people have a real problem. In that smart people, the more intelligent you are, the more you try and prove things with facts. This is true. Look at the facts. And you're not willing to see possibilities that people who are a little less smart than you can see, because they don't consider all the facts. They see a reality you can't envision. And this is what we see across the board with entrepreneurs. The rest of us say, I don't know. I can't see it. I don't believe you. I don't understand, because our brains won't let us see what entrepreneurs see. That's entrepreneurial alertness. That's the power of beliefs to change what you're able to see.
How can we train entrepreneurial alertness? Nir, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Genuine pleasure to meet you. You've written 3 incredible books.
Thank you.
So I want to start with a quote. So there's a great quote from Ed Lattimore. Someone half your IQ is making 10x more than you because they aren't smart enough to doubt themselves.
That's really good.
As I read your book,
That's really good.
that just kept playing in my head. So I was flicking through going, there's a quote that I'm trying to think of that just...
Say it one more time. That is so good. I need to hear it again.
Someone with half your intelligence is making 10 times more than you because they aren't smart enough to doubt themselves. Talk to me about that.
That is so good. So in Beyond Belief, I differentiate between facts, faith, and belief. Facts are things that are objectively true. They are true whether you believe them or not. The world is more like a sphere than it is flat. That's an objective truth. Sorry, flat earthers. Doesn't care what you believe. That's the way it is.
There's our first viral clip.
Okay, exactly. There we go. You just lost all your flat earthers. Then we have on the other side of the spectrum, we have faith. Faith is a conviction that does not require evidence. God rewards the righteous. No evidence is required. In between fact and faith is a belief. A belief is a conviction that is open to revision based on new evidence. And what makes beliefs so special and underutilized is that they can change, that beliefs are tools, not truths. And so when we release ourselves from that requirement that beliefs have to be facts, which are objective truths, we open up all kinds of new possibilities. So the reason that quote hits so hard is that smart people have a real problem. In that smart people, the more intelligent you are, the more you try and prove things with facts. This is true. Look at the facts. And you're not willing to see possibilities that people who are a little less smart than you can see, because they don't consider all the facts. They see a reality you can't envision. And this is what we see across the board with entrepreneurs. That entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, in his biography, Walter Isaacson wrote about Steve Jobs, that he had a reality distortion field, that he could see this future and believe that that was going to be reality. And it turns out that there's a psychological phenomenon for this. It's called entrepreneurial alertness. It's actually been studied very extensively.
This is what I wanted to dig into, because I want today to be like a masterclass for entrepreneurs about their brain, right? So I talk about the body, the business, the brain. Like there's no one better positioned in the world than you to kind of like help us understand the brain a bit more of entrepreneurs. So entrepreneur alertness.
Entrepreneurial alertness, right? And I'll tell you, I know a lot of people are going to see this, but I'm not naming anybody by name, but I've met a lot of entrepreneurs in my day. And I'll tell you, I cannot find any kind of correlation between intelligence and success. I've met some people who are incredibly successful, net worth over $100 million. Average at best in terms of pure raw smarts. It's not about intelligence. It's not about skill. Skill can be learned. It's not even about resources. Some very successful people came from nothing, and many people who have every opportunity, every resource, accomplish very little. I think the defining factor is belief. That entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, can see things differently. I'm not speaking figuratively. They literally can see things other people can't see. I'll give you an example. That there was a study done where they asked 2 groups of people to do a very simple task. The task was, we want you to look through this newspaper and simply count the number of images you see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many images in this newspaper do you see? One group were people who believed they were lucky. Not objective fact. They believed that they were lucky people. The other group were unlucky people. People, again, not based on any fact, not on what had actually happened to them. They just believed, they were self-described, I'm not very lucky. The unlucky people, to do this very simple task, took 2.5 minutes. The lucky people took 11 seconds. Why? Because on page 2 of this newspaper, in big, bold letters, one of those images said, there are 43 images in this paper. Collect your reward. The unlucky people literally didn't see it.
So that's the alertness you're talking.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is what entrepreneurs do differently than everybody else. They see $100 bills all over the floor. And the rest of us just walk on them. We don't even see what's there because they can envision a future the rest of us can't see.
So to answer that kind of age-old debate, do you think entrepreneurs are born or made?
I think made. I would say made. Made, and here's why I think that. There was a line of research called learned helplessness. This was done by Seligman and Meyer, this research around learned helplessness and this was gospel in the psychology community, that everybody just adopted this idea, this research has been around for decades, that you learn to be helpless in life. And this explained all kinds of social phenomena and why there's persistent poverty and all kinds of, different social problems were explained because, if you keep trying, you keep trying, you keep failing, you learn to be hopeless. Well, a few years ago, Seligman and Meyer, these two researchers, not only did they conclude their research was incorrect, they discovered that the exact opposite was true. The exact opposite. That we don't learn helplessness, we are born helpless. Our default state is passivity, is hopelessness. If you think about a baby is born into hopelessness. They need help to do everything and anything. You have a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We are born into helplessness. And so what we must learn is agency. We have to learn hope. We test our environment. We see what's possible. But as soon as anything gets difficult and risky, the brain wants to protect us.
Okay.
Because evolutionarily, evolution does not care about you flourishing. Evolution does not care about you being a multimillionaire. Evolution does not care about you being happy and successful. Evolution doesn't care about any of that stuff. Evolution cares about keeping you alive so that you can procreate. That's it. That's all evolution wants.
We're wired to stay alive.
So we're wired to stay alive. We're wired to be passive. If you think about it, why do we obsess about problems we don't have, right? You turn on the news and all you see are other people's problems, wars in other countries and people stabbing each other and hurting each other and all these terrible things that you can do nothing about. But why do we love that stuff? Why can we not pull ourselves away from it? Because we have what's called a negativity bias, all of us. Because good things are nice, bad things will kill you. So we're constantly on watch for things that might hurt us.
My headline sponsor in 2026 is Nostra. They have a really unique way of serving Irish companies. Kevin has backed me again in 2026 as he felt we're a fit as Nostra-backed founders and entrepreneurs just like I do. They take the headache of IT away and deliver all the technology and people. But most of all, they speak to clients in plain English, just like we do on the pod. They deliver from companies from 1,000 all the way down to 20 employees. Nostra's tagline is, take control of your IT, which means they give companies a view of what they have, how it all works, so leaders in the company understand IT. This episode of The Entrepreneur Experiment is brought to you by Azure Communications. If you're building a brand, how it shows up in the real world matters, just like you see on the pod. And that's where Azure Communications come in. Azure specializes in high-quality print and packaging solutions that help businesses look professional, credible, and ready to scale. From packaging and point-of-sale materials to branded print that actually reflects the quality of your product, Azure works closely with businesses of all sizes to get the details right. Whether you're launching something new or upgrading how your brand appears, Azure Communications helps you make a strong impression where it counts. Find out more at azurecom.ie. That's azurecom.ie.
It's funny, I had this exact thought yesterday. I was sitting in a cafe and, London, there's been so much negativity around London specifically. It's a crime center. There's all these negative things happening. But 99% of people want to get on about their day.
It's beautiful.
Live their lives.
It's wonderful.
They're polite. They're courteous. They're just, it's a lovely place to be. But I think with social media, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, there's so much bias towards that stuff.
Right.
And I think you're dead right. It used to be, if it bleeds, it leads. The old news
That's
thing
still the
of like,
case.
if it's a bleeding headline, it'll get more people to pick up the paper,
Right.
turn on the news, click on social media. So we're wired to look for danger.
That's right. We have this negativity bias, and our brains are constantly pulling us towards passivity, towards our old beliefs. So this differentiates. So this is a very important distinction. There are two kinds of beliefs. We have what we call a limiting belief and a liberating belief. A limiting belief is a belief that decreases your motivation and increases your suffering in the long term. In the short term, a limiting belief can feel good. I'm no good at this. I'm not ready. This is hard. And so why is the brain doing this? It's whispering these things into your ear. There's no time. We hear these limiting beliefs all the time. These limiting beliefs are propagated by your brain to keep you safe, so that you're way far away from your actual limits, right? Your actual physical and psychological limits. You're not even close. Let me demonstrate with a study. There was a study done back in the 1950s by a biologist named Kurt Richter. And Richter had a very simple question. He wanted to know how long wild rats could swim. So he takes...
This is wild.
This is a good one,
When I read this book, I was just like, I read it twice.
Yeah, right? It's incredible.
Tell everybody what it is, because it's honestly, in all the book, it's one of those things I was like...
It's mind-blowing.
But it does reset.
Exactly. That's exactly why I share this story. So Kurt Richter takes these rats, he puts them in a cylinder of water, and he wants to know how long they can swim. So he stands there with a timer, and he starts counting down, and he sees that at about 15 minutes, the rats aren't quite exhausted. They just kind of give up. They just stop swimming. They sink under the water and die. Now, you can't do this kind of experiment anymore. It's not ethical, but the rats are already dead, so let's learn from them. Now he wants to do another experiment. How much longer can he get the rats to swim for? So here's what he does. He takes a new group of rats, puts them in the same exact cylinders, halfway filled with water. And now, at the 15-minute mark, he knows that they start to struggle. They start to give up. He pulls in his hand. He takes out the rat, dries it off, lets it catch its breath, and then plunk, back into the cylinder it goes. And he does this a few times to condition the rat to know that salvation might be possible. Now there's hope that if the rat keeps swimming, they might be saved. How much longer does the rat swim for? Started with 15 minutes. How much does the rat swim for? Now, I know you know the answer, but when I tell most people this study, they guess, okay, maybe twice as long. Imagine that. That'd be amazing if you could have 100% increase.
In my head, as I was reading it, you do that thing in your head. You said the brain's prediction engine. I was like, oh, I bet it's twice.
Yeah, twice as long. That'd be amazing, right? Or maybe 3 times or 4 times. Wow, if the rat could go from 15 minutes to 60 minutes, that would be incredible, unprecedented. Imagine if you could run that race 4 times longer, persist on that big project, make 4 times the sales calls, whatever is difficult for you. Imagine if you could persist 4 times longer. That'd be incredible. But the rats didn't swim for 60 minutes. They swam for 60 hours. 60 hours.
So 15 minutes to 60 hours.
240 times more persistent. Why? And what does that mean for us?
That was my question. That's what I was dying to ask you today, going, okay, so how do we as humans, and then as entrepreneurs and even athletes, how do we then apply that?
Right. Yeah. So when you think about the body, the brain, your business, it applies to all 3. What's at the center of success? The center of success when it comes to your body, your business, and your brain. Did I get those are the 3? It's not resources. It's not skill. It's not intelligence. It's persistence. And here's the secret. The rats taught us the secret. Yeah. Why? What's the number one determinant of whether you fail? Okay, there's lots of things that will make you successful. There's one thing that guarantees failure. One thing that guarantees failure is quitting. And when you look back, think right now, when I didn't succeed at my goals, was it because something kept me from my goals? No, it's probably because you quit. Now, quitting isn't always bad. We can talk about the three criteria for when it's good to quit. But when most people think about why they didn't achieve a dream, they didn't succeed in their business, they didn't get in shape, they didn't write that book they always had inside them, whatever it is, it's not the things you think it is. It's not because the world was against you. It's because you quit. Now, again, quitting can be the right answer. We can talk about why. But if we know the number one cause of failure is quitting, what's the secret to persistence? The rats taught us. What changed in the experiment? The rats' bodies didn't change. Same rat bodies. They didn't suddenly become super rats. Same environment, same cylinders. Nothing changed in the experiment in terms of the experiment design. The environment was exactly the same. As much as we complain about our environment being the reason things change in our life, no, nothing changed in the environment. The only variable left, we can't ask the rats, obviously, but the only thing left is something changed in their brains. That some switch was flipped. Something happened in their brain that unlocked what was always within them. That's what's so important about this story. The rats could have always swam for 60 hours, but they quit at 15 minutes. Where's our 15 minutes?
And this was, I was so keen to pull apart from you, because I that's why I call this podcast The Entrepreneur Experiment, because that's how I live my life. I live my life in experiments, because I think people put so much pressure on themselves and then they quit.
Right.
Because the pressure is too much.
Right.
It's too great a failure. So they just either they don't start. I do this lecture in a college in Ireland, and before we start, I reframe it and go, what's the number one reason for business failure? Money, time,
Competition,
wrong product, not good enough. I'm like, nope, you don't start.
And
And they're like,
yeah.
oh, okay. I was like,
love
how
it.
many of you have that idea in your head? You've been thinking about it for so long, but, because they put all they put all the reasons for failure. Entrepreneurs, it doesn't make sense what they do, right?
Doesn't make sense.
They take something in here and they bring it from their head to their hands to the world. They're creating something that doesn't exist for a market they can't possibly know. It's wild.
It's wild.
So for the rats, and this is how we translate it into entrepreneurs, the default mode, if you're owning your business, I'm just going to work harder. I'll do more hours. I'll do more whatever. Or if you're training for something, I'll just train harder. But your thesis is it's not that. So how do people take those rat learnings and start applying it to their lives?
So we need to realize that if persistence is what matters, that's the most important thing. To get started and continue over the long term.
Yeah.
We need to understand the nature of motivation. That's what underlies persistence, is motivation. So how do you engineer motivation? Well, most people think, and classical economics will teach you, that if you have an incentive, a benefit, and you know what to do, the behavior, that's all you need. Here's what you do, and here's why you do it. Done deal. But that's clearly not enough, that there's something missing. That motivation is not a straight line between behavior and benefit. Motivation is a triangle. Not only do you need to know what do I do, that's the behavior, and I would argue that's the easiest of the components, because today we're drowning in information. You know, it used to be, maybe our grandparents could say, hey, you know what, I just don't know what to do. What are you talking about? Today, ask ChatGPT, ask Google, you can learn pretty much anything. Buy a book, it's $30, 6 years of research. Everything is out there. You can know what to do. The excuse of, well, I don't know what to do, I'm lacking information. No, you're not. It's all out there. That's not good enough. You have to know, it's necessary but not sufficient. You have to know what to do. You have to know the benefit of why you're doing it, clearly, but underlying it is belief. That we need not only the behavior and the benefit, but also the belief. I mean, and let's make this practical. So let's say you're working for a boss. I know most of your audience are entrepreneurs. So think of one of your employees, perhaps. If somebody that you're trying to keep motivated is working for you, but they don't believe in the benefit, they don't trust you, they don't believe you have their best interest at heart, maybe they don't think you're going to give them that promotion or that increased salary, they're going to lose motivation. They're going to do the minimum amount of work because they don't believe in you as a founder. Conversely, on the benefit side, on the behavior side, that is, if they don't believe in their own ability to sustain that behavior, maybe they don't believe they can do it. I'm no good at sales. I'm not good in front of people, whatever it might be. If they don't believe in their own ability to do that behavior, they can know exactly what to do, but they won't do it. So motivation is not a straight line, it's a triangle. I have to have the behavior, the benefit, and the belief holding it all together.
Okay.
And so that's what gets us to these limiting beliefs versus liberating beliefs. A limiting belief, as I briefly mentioned, is defined as a belief that increases motivation. Let's start with limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are beliefs that decrease motivation, that make you less likely to persist because they increase your suffering. A liberating belief does the opposite. A liberating belief increases your motivation and decreases your suffering. So to answer your question, how do we push past these limits? We have to identify our limiting beliefs and replace them with liberating beliefs. Now, the hard part is that limiting beliefs always feel like facts. They're always hidden. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked with people who pay me a lot of money to help them find their limiting beliefs. And even when they see their limiting beliefs, even when they identify them, no, my situation's special.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you about, because everyone feels it's like, no two snowflakes in the world are the same.
I've heard every reason. You don't understand my schedule. There's no time. That's probably the most common limiting. But there's no time. I'm so busy. I just don't have time. I'm not a morning person. I'm no good at sales. I hear them all the time. Because the thing about limiting beliefs, it's like your face. If I told you, look at your face. Look at your face. You can't do it. You can look at your hands, you can look at your feet, you can't look at your face. And limiting beliefs are the same way. You can't see your own limiting beliefs unless, like your face, you reflect. You look in a mirror, and a mirror will show you your face. And so there's a process to find your limiting beliefs. What's interesting, by the way, we can see other people's limiting beliefs. We can see other people's faces, right? And if I said name your co-founder or your spouse or your family's limiting beliefs, you could probably come up with everybody else's limiting beliefs, right?
This is what I have. I literally in my notes as I was reading the book, I was like, one of my questions was, why is it so easy to see everyone else's? Because you can counsel your best friend, you can counsel your partner, you can go, you know what, and you're probably right, but why then are we unable to see and then action our own?
Right. This is the biggest problem. That all of our problems, our personal problems, our interpersonal problems, our geopolitical problems occur because we take our faith to be a fact, and so many of what we think are facts are nothing more than beliefs. Because again, the brain's default state is passivity, is helplessness. That's what the research has discovered. Our brains want us to be safe. So whatever served us in the past and kept us alive before is what the brain is going to get us to do in the future, as much as it possibly can. And so when we take out these limiting beliefs, and that means we may have to change our mind in some way, the brain hates changing its mind. I'll say it again. The brain hates changing its mind because it's dangerous. It's unknown. It's about the future, what might happen. And so the brain doesn't know what to do with that. It's scary. Underlying so many of these problems, whether it's our physical problems, our psychological problems, our relationship problems, is fear. So changing your mind is scary because it's new, it's different. And so that's why you constantly hear these whispers of, you can't do this, you're not ready, there's no time, et cetera, et cetera. All these limiting beliefs are trying to protect you.
So do limiting beliefs come from the two things we talked about there? The brain inherently wants to protect you, but also your past experiences?
That's right.
Do they impact your limiting beliefs?
All of our beliefs come from what's called priors. There's actually a optical illusion called the coffer illusion. Maybe you can put it up on the screen for those watching. And what it does is essentially it's one image that when you look at this image, same image, based on where you were born, where you grew up, you will either see circles or you will see rectangles. Same frickin' image. And if you were born in an urban environment versus born in a pastoral environment, if you were born somewhere more in nature, you will see something different. Isn't that amazing? Same image.
Yeah, I love those ones. The optical illusions you get. Like sometimes they pop up on social media for you. Like, do you see a rabbit or a shark?
Yeah. Well, and those, the rabbit or the bunny one, that's a classic one. That's based on what I suggest to you. If I say, do you see the rabbit? You'll see the rabbit. If I say, do you see the duck? You'll see the duck.
Okay.
With this coffer illusion, what's amazing, I don't have to say anything. And
it's based on your environment.
It's based on where you grew up, based on your prior experiences, based on what the brain has seen before is what it predicts to see in the future. Because the biggest myth out there that I would like to get people to realize is that you don't see reality as it is. Not even close. You do not perceive reality. You perceive a prediction of reality. It's called predictive processing. It's the best model we have of how the brain works. Why does that happen? Because reality, there's too much information in reality. Right now, you're absorbing 11 million bits of information. 11 million bits of information, that is the equivalent of reading War and Peace every second twice. Okay, it's a tremendous amount of information. But your conscious mind can only pay attention to 50 bits of information. 50 bits versus 11 million bits. That's one sentence. 50 bits is about one sentence per second versus War and Peace every second twice. It's impossible.
It's hard even to quantify. Because as I read it, I was walking through the streets of London yesterday. I was trying to apply it as I was walking to your research. I was like, that's even hard to understand. Because especially in a city like London, there's stuff happening up, down, left, right, in front of you, behind you, and you're kind of heightened awareness. Whereas in here, we're in a beautiful, cozy environment. It feels relaxed. So what happens then with the brain? Like, how do we understand this?
That's right. So your brain is actually taking in all that information. It's conscious. It's not conscious of all this information, but it's absorbing it. The light entering your eyes, the sound of my voice in your ears, the ambient temperature of the room. Your brain is processing all this information. It's just not paying attention to all of it. what it's paying attention to is this tiny pinhole of attention that it's able to consciously process. And how does it decide what to see? How does it decide what to pay attention to? It's based on your beliefs, because there's just too much information to absorb. So based on what you believe, it literally alters what you are able to see, because it's what you pay attention to. So you don't see things as they are. You see things as you are, and you see what you pay attention to. And so that's why when an entrepreneur has entrepreneurial alertness, they can see things that other people literally can't see. They can't even imagine. I'll give you actually a quick riddle to test this. Now, 83% of people, it's not in the book, so I know you may have heard it before, but let's test you here. It'll be interesting. 83% of people who hear this riddle don't get it. 83% of people don't get this riddle. Here's the riddle. You ready for it?
I hate riddles. Go.
You hate riddles. Okay, that's all right. It's okay. 83. You're in good company. 83% of people don't get this riddle. There is a father and a son who are driving at night, in the middle of the night, on a dark road, no lights around. And as they're driving on this country road, a deer jumps out in front of their car, and they get into a horrible car crash. The father is instantly killed. Okay, the father is instantly killed. The son is in critical condition, and he's rushed to the hospital. When he gets to the hospital, he's rolled into the operating room. The surgeon barges into the room, takes one look at the boy, and says, "I can't operate on this boy. He's my son." Now, have you heard this before?
I haven't. I can't remember the
You
answer,
haven't?
which is the most annoying thing. I've heard of it, I can't remember the answer.
Okay, I'll say it again just so everyone's listening.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in good company. Again, 83% of people don't get this riddle. I'll just repeat the ending again. The boy is rushed to the operating room. The surgeon barges into the room, takes one look at the boy, and says, "I cannot operate on this boy. He's my son." How can that be?
They're
Think,
both
think, think.
fathers, just of different sons, right?
They're both fathers of different sons. How would that be?
Did you say they're a father and a son?
Right?
But it's not his, mightn't necessarily
Nope,
be
it's
his
his
father.
son.
Oh,
It's
it's his son?
The father driving the car. It's his son. Absolutely.
Gosh, I don't know.
You can't envision the answer, right? You can't see it in your mind. Well, how could it possibly make sense? Right?
You obviously go stepdad. That's the obvious question.
Nope,
Is
not a
that the
stepdad.
yeah.
There's a simpler answer. The answer is that the surgeon was the boy's mother. Now, again, 83% of men and women, doesn't matter gender, 83% of children of female surgeons also don't get the answer. Now, do you see what it demonstrates?
I think when I anchored on the father,
Of course.
and
prior experience, because look, the fact of the matter is that 80% of surgeons in the real world, not the riddle, but just 80% of surgeons in the world are male, 20% are female. Now, what does this demonstrate? Your brain couldn't even see that possibility. Couldn't imagine it. Here's a riddle, right? Which after I tell you the answer, you're like, of course.
it's so simple.
Think about that for an entrepreneurial context. Every day, entrepreneurs are pitching their dream, their vision, what they see. They see that the mother could have been a surgeon. The rest of us say, I don't know, I can't see it. I don't believe you. I don't understand. Because our brains won't let us see what entrepreneurs see. That's entrepreneurial alertness. That's the power of beliefs to change what you're able to see.
How can we train entrepreneurial alertness? Obviously, born and made, there's different variations here, but like, how can we train that? So for founders that are listening, entrepreneurs that are listening, or aspiring entrepreneurs listening, how can we train that?
We become, first we realize we don't see reality as it is. We don't feel things as they are. We feel them as we believe them to be. And we act based on our beliefs. So those are the three, you have to learn the three powers of belief. The three powers of belief: the power of attention, we believe what we pay attention to; the power of anticipation, we feel what we expect to feel; and the power of agency, that beliefs determine what we are able to do. And so once you understand those three powers of belief, this is the switch that was flipped in those rats, that their mind was changed, that hope might be possible, that salvation might occur. And that changed what they did. Right? Because those three powers, it changed what they saw, what they felt, and what they did. Ultimately, they kept swimming because of this possibility of hope. And so when you train yourself to be aware of that, and at first it's hard, because what you have to do, unfortunately, you have to dig into the muck. This is what I call. The muck are those areas of your life that don't get better, and you don't know why. Right? That you've tried before. I'm not good with people. I'm not good with sales. I don't know how to pitch. Whatever it might be, I don't have enough time. It's too late. You have to take out those limiting beliefs that, again, are intentionally hidden to you. You think they're facts. You think it's who you are. I have this. I'm not good at that. You have to intentionally take out those limiting beliefs and examine them, reflect upon them, just like you can't look at your face without a mirror. You have to take them out. It's going to be uncomfortable. And then you have to assess which one of those limiting beliefs serve you and which ones hurt you, and then consciously adopt those liberating beliefs, even when they don't feel true.
Okay. How do we take them out here? Do we sit down with a journal, write them all down? Do you have to get someone maybe to interview you? What's the best way to get them out?
Sure. Okay. So the best way to demonstrate is to tell you how I did it. And the area of my life that has most profoundly changed since 6 years of research into the psychology of beliefs has been with my interpersonal relationships. So I'll share what was most profound for me. And I think most people can relate. It's a story with my mother. And here's what happened. So a few years ago, my mother had her 74th birthday. And I thought I was going to do something very nice for her. I was going to buy her some flowers. Problem was, I was in Singapore and she was in Central Florida, where I grew up. So I stayed up late at night. I found the best florist I could in Florida, in Central Florida, that would deliver to her. I called, I looked at Google reviews, I made sure that the order was correct, and I went to bed that night. I patted myself on the shoulder and I thought, you know what, Nir, you're a good son. Your mom's going to get the flowers. She's going to be so happy. She's going to call you tomorrow and tell you what a great son you are. That didn't happen. Here's what happened. The next day, I called my mom and say, hey, Mom, happy birthday. Did you get the flowers I sent? And she says, yes, I did. Thank you. But just so you know, those flowers that you sent, they were half dead. And don't use that florist again. To which I said, well, that's the last time I buy you flowers.
Okay.
And that went over about as well as you think.
So you heard a certain thing.
Yeah.
You heard something different.
Exactly. Because I had immediately decided, based on my priors, based on my prior interactions with her, she is so judgmental. She is so hard to please. In an instant, when she said that, my brain saw what she said. I interpreted it. I interpreted that reality as in a certain way. Now, there's a technique called inquiry-based stress reduction that comes from an author called Byron Katie, and she's done this for quite some time. And she actually, where this really comes from, it's over 2,000 years old. This is a technique that actually Aristotle used in a different form, but Byron Katie really perfected it into this technique called inquiry-based stress reduction that's been widely studied. And so inquiry-based stress reduction gives us 4 questions. What we do is when we have a belief that's causing us suffering, any belief, my employee is lazy, I have to do everything myself, there's no time, I'm no good at this, I don't know how to sell, that person's annoying, I don't know what it is, anything that's causing you suffering, you can take out that belief. The belief that I had at that moment, which I believed was absolutely a fact, was my mother is clearly too judgmental and hard to please. Okay? Now we have 4 questions. The first question, is it true? Is the belief true? What a stupid question. Clearly, my mother was obviously being very judgmental. Dumb question. Let's skip that one. Second question. Is it absolutely true? That's the second question. Is it absolutely? Sounds like the first question. There's a little bit of a difference. Is it absolutely true? Absolutely meaning 100% of the time. No exceptions. There's no other interpretation that my mother was clearly being too judgmental. Could I be sure? Could I be 100%? Absolutely. Okay, maybe there's some other interpretation. I don't know what the interpretation might be, but okay, fine. Maybe there's another alternative perspective. Fine. Third question. Who am I when I hold this belief? When I believe my mother's too judgmental and hard to please, who do I become? How do I feel? I'm impatient. I become this 13-year-old version of myself. I say things I later regret. I'm not the best version of myself. Fourth question. Who would I be without this belief? If I didn't have this belief, if I had a magic wand and poof, that belief disappeared for all time, how would I feel? I'd feel lighter. I'd feel less stressed. I'd feel more myself. Okay, so in about 30 seconds, we determined this thing that I was sure was a fact in the moment may not be a fact, may just be a belief. It wasn't really serving me, and I might be better off without it. That's amazing. So now we do what's called a turnaround. A turnaround is where we don't try and change the mind. We're not trying to change anything because remember, the brain hates changing its mind.
Yeah.
We're not trying to change anything. We're simply trying to collect a portfolio of perspectives, just like you have Pokemon cards or baseball cards or portfolio of stocks.
So you can pull the one you need at a certain
Exactly.
time.
You want to see what other beliefs could be helpful to me, other tools.
Yeah.
So I had one belief. The first belief, my mother's too judgmental and hard to please. Okay, that was my default belief. What other beliefs could be also possible? The way you do that is you ask yourself to consider the exact opposite. This is related to your question. How do you see things differently? If our limiting beliefs are our default state, our passive default, how do we see things differently so that we could get to that liberating belief? We ask ourselves to consider, just to consider, you don't have to change your mind, the exact opposite. What's the exact opposite of my mother is too judgmental and hard to please? My mother is not too judgmental and hard to please. How could that also be true? Is there any possible way that could be true? Well, she did thank me, and maybe she was just saying a statement of fact. The flowers didn't look so great. They were half dead. That's a statement of fact. Is that necessarily a judgment? Maybe, maybe not. She was also maybe trying to be helpful so that I wouldn't get scammed from this florist. So now I have two beliefs. Okay, maybe that other one could also be true. Let's go for a third. What's another opposite of my mother's too judgmental and hard to please? I am too judgmental and hard to please. Could that be true? Well, I had rehearsed in my mind that when I did this nice thing for my mom, I expected and deserved effusive praise. I wanted her to tell me what a great son I was. And when that didn't happen, I lost it. So who was judging who? I was judging her response.
So you're replacing your judgments with just tools, essentially, different things you can pull at a certain
Other
time?
beliefs. I had one, now I have three. There's a fourth. The opposite of my mother's too judgmental and hard to please. We did, I am too judgmental and hard to please. There's another one. I am too judgmental and hard to please towards myself. When I put all this work into something and I spent all this time and money to do something nice for somebody and it didn't work out the way I'd wanted, I felt incompetent. I felt like, oh, there's this simple thing that I couldn't even do right. And I immediately felt bad about myself. And so this is called this is a misattribution of emotion. When I feel bad about something I did, we all do this, we take it out on the first person we can find. They're causing my suffering. But that's a judgment. And so now I have four beliefs. Okay, so let me ask you, of those four beliefs, which one is the right one? Which is the fact among those four? Which is true? Which is false? All of them? None of them? Who cares?
Yeah, that's what as I was getting, as you were telling me this, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of, you just almost like a reflective. You
Because
almost need
a
to be able to
belief-
just let it go.
Well, not exactly let it go, but realizing that a belief is a tool, not a truth. Just like a carpenter doesn't show up to a job site and say, hey, I'm only going to use a hammer to build your home.
Yeah.
You know why? Because hammers worked for me in the past, so I'm always going to use hammers. That's the only true tool is a hammer. No, sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a saw, sometimes you need a wrench, you need different tools. But with these limiting beliefs, we keep holding on to them. I'm no good at public speaking. I can't do sales. I need to find an engineer. There's no time. I'm too fat. I'm too thin. It's too late. It's one tool.
Okay.
So the tool of...
you can almost imagine, like, just behind us here is a nice kind of like little dresser, so you can imagine all your different tools kind of laid out. If you're a visual thinker, I think that'd be a good way. Let's design a belief experiment.
Real quick,
Go
real
ahead.
quick. The most important thing is realizing that first belief that I thought was a fact, my mother is too judgmental and hard to please. How could I decrease my suffering there? How could I increase my motivation to build the relationship with my mom and decrease my suffering? With that belief, there was only one way out. She had to change so I could stop suffering. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If you hold your breath waiting for other people to change, you're going to suffocate. With the other three beliefs, I could do something about that. And so that's why it increased my motivation to work on that relationship. Again, the number one determinant of whether you will succeed is whether or not you quit. So now I have more motivation to work on that relationship, and I'm not suffering anymore. I have peace with this relationship with my mom because I had a different perspective. Now, it doesn't matter which one's true, it's which one serves me best.
So you're a science guy. Let's design an experiment for entrepreneurs that they can actually take from this chat and start applying to their lives. So I like them to be timely. So we start with a thesis, start with a question. I'll let you come up with the question of what they should try work on, the time duration they should do it for, and then the outcome that they should be testing. So for an experiment, Nir Eyal's belief experiment, what should we do?
So I want you to look at an area of your life where you have that muck, where you have some area of your life where something is not changing, where you basically know what to do. You want the benefit of whatever would come. I want a better relationship with my family, with my employees. I want to start exercising. I want to make those sales calls. Whatever, I need to prepare that pitch. Whatever that thing that you're
we're going to
dreading.
look at an area we want change.
Right.
That's the parameter.
That's causing you suffering in some way. And what I want you to do is to find what that limiting belief could be. If you're stuck somewhere, if things aren't happening and you don't know why, I want you to find that limiting belief, and write it down. I'm not good at sales. I hate pitching. I hate exercise. There's no time. You'll find one for yourself, right? What's that reason you keep giving yourself as to why you lack motivation to do the thing you know you need to do? So that's step 2. Write it down. And then I want you to try these 4 questions. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? Who am I with that belief? And who would I be without that belief? Okay. That's the first step. And then we want to try this turnaround. Okay. The turnaround is going to be, think of ways that the exact opposite could also be true. And it's very important to note, you'll hate this. Your brain is going to do everything it possibly can to fight you, to try and prove to you why the opposite can't be true. Why it's a fact that the way things are, that you can only do what you can do. That is not true. You can only do what you believe you can do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not that you can do anything. There are laws of physics, right? You can't just flap your wings and fly.
Yeah. So we think of the ways that the opposite is true, and then how do we fundamentally
put it into
change?
practice?
I like your practical, at the end of every chapter, there's the practical summaries. I love them because, it just gives you that kind of like synopsis. So now how do we apply this?
Okay.
And for how long?
So now we have what could be the exact opposite of that limiting belief. That's what the turnaround's all about.
Yeah.
And now we're going to turn those limiting beliefs into a liberating belief. So I want you to create, at the end of this exercise, it's probably going to take you a good hour or so to do, or might be less based on how self-aware you are. You're going to turn whatever limiting belief you're holding into a liberating belief. And then you're going to repeat that as a prayer, as a mantra. Now, I'm not a religious guy. I don't believe anything supernatural. And there's actually a section in the book about the psychology of prayer and why prayer works even without faith. Remember, a faith is a conviction that does not require evidence. You don't need that, right?
So repeat it as a mantra daily in the situation it happens, how long, when, and how often?
As much as you need it. So here's what happens. So with my mom, for example,
okay,
instead of that instantaneous reaction of, there she goes being judgmental and hard to please, my mantra, my little prayer, we're all working with the tools we have. That's mine. That's my liberating beliefs when it comes to difficult relationships with people. When I'm working on a task that's difficult, okay, writing is really hard work, okay, but I've written 3 bestsellers, and all I want to do every time I write is watch the sports scores or check email or let me check that Slack channel or let me check the news. Instead of saying this is hard, let me escape, it's this is what it feels like to get better. I literally tell myself, that's the mantra I have. This is what it feels like to get better. This is what it feels like to get better. At first, I used to have a Post-it note that I had.
When you're feeling that resistance.
What's the liberating belief? The liberating belief. And again, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel, that's so silly, this stupid little mantra. That's not going to help. It's just for you. I don't want you to put posters on the wall among all your employees to make some cheesy slogan that other people have to pay attention to. No, it's not for them. It's for you. What is something that increases your motivation to persist and decreases your suffering? And so when I tell myself, this is hard, and that's a good thing, versus this is hard, let me go check Facebook, when now I have a rationale, and this is probably the most important lesson I can teach people, pain is not suffering. Pain is not suffering. Those are 2 separate things. Pain is the signal, okay? Just like, remember those 11 million bits of information? Mm-hmm. The light in this room, I'm not going to say, I'm suffering from this light or I'm suffering from this sound or the ambient temperature of the room. Like, only if it's out of range is it a problem. But it's my interpretation of that. Have you ever been sitting in a room with someone and they're like, oh, it's so cold? You're like, no, it's totally fine, right? Because you're perceiving it differently.
Yeah.
You're both getting the same signal. The fact of the matter is the room is the same exact temperature, but you're interpreting it differently. So you can do that for yourself. When I am bored, when I am lonely, when I am indecisive, when I am fatigued, and I'm feeling pain, it only becomes suffering if my beliefs interpret it as so. So instead of, this is boring, I need to go check email, it's, this is boring, and this is what it feels like to get better. So having those repeated, that's one technique. There's a bunch of other stuff that's in the book as well. But that's one technique that I constantly use.
I think that's great. I love giving tangibles to people because, you know, it can be hard to apply everything. So I love to kind of give one tangible to go, look, do this one thing. How long should, obviously forever, but how long would be a good experiment duration for them? Because it helps people to kind of go start and an end. Obviously you want them to continue if it's working. How long should people do that for?
So this is actually a great place to talk about something I teased a bit at the beginning around when do we quit?
Yes.
And so this is useful advice for testing a new belief or testing anything, in fact, because sometimes we do want to quit. You know, I'm very tough on quitting, but I've quit many things. I've quit businesses, I've quit projects, I've quit relationships. Quitting is okay. Quitting too soon is the problem. That's when we destroy human potential, is when we quit before it's time. So just as with a new belief, so let's say we adopt this liberating belief, but for how long? And when do we know if it's serving us or not? We follow the same 3 rules of quitting anything, okay? The 3 rules of when to quit is, number 1, did you meet your mile marker? So what a lot of people do is they say, I'm going to start a New Year's resolution to get in shape. And I'm going to start going to the gym and eat healthy. And what happens on day 5 or 6 or 7? This is hard. I don't like it. I don't feel like going to the gym right now. I'm busy. There's no time. As soon as they get a little bit of discomfort, they interpret it as suffering and they quit. So the way you prevent that is you don't make a New Year's resolution and say, I'm going to get in shape. You don't make I'm going to start a business and be super successful. You say, I'm going to do this specific behavior, or I'm going to adopt this specific belief for a fixed number of days. Okay, that's called a mile marker.
Okay, that's why I asked this question specifically, because I think if it's open-ended, it just...
As soon as it gets hard,
it's the brain thing. The brain can't... I do a track session running every Tuesday and Thursday. And before every session, and even during it sometimes, I'm like, I don't know.
This sucks.
I don't know if I like it.
Yeah.
But at the end, I am elated.
Right.
Every single week.
Right. So you don't have to necessarily like it. I wouldn't put that. That's fantastic. I think for me, what I found it works is I don't have to like it. I just have to do it for 30 days or whatever it is. A week, 30 days, 6 months, doesn't matter.
So pick a marker.
Pick a mile marker. And don't quit before the mile marker, because if you don't have a mile marker, you're going to quit as soon as it gets difficult.
Yeah.
The next criteria is, are you learning? So we interpret failure as a reason to quit. It didn't work out, so I quit. No. You know, the most successful people I know are losers. Literally, the most successful people I've ever met have failed more than unsuccessful people. I'm sure you've seen the same thing.
You only need to be right once.
That's right. Successful people are losers. They try and try and try again. Unsuccessful people...
They're not quitters, though.
That's right. Unsuccessful people, they try once, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not going to try again. Again, the number 1 determinant of success is persistence. So if you are learning, even if you're failing, it's fine. It's almost like, think about if I told you, hey, I have a time machine and I went to the future and I saw that if you fail 5 more times, the 6th time you're going to succeed. You make 5 more sales calls, the 6th one you're going to close. You go on 5 more dates, the 6th one you're going to find the love of your life. I know 5 more failures you're going to succeed. How eager would you be to fail? So let me fail fast because I want to get to the 6th success. So as long as you're learning, that's no need to quit, even if you're failing. The 3rd criteria is, does persistence matter? So there are some endeavors where persistence doesn't matter and you're just banging your head against the wall. So for example, if you're working for a company with a crappy company culture, well, if that toxic culture is part of where you work, you're not going to outlive that. Okay, it's going to be toxic much more than you're going to be able to persist through it. Whereas with exercise, for example, you know, I used to be clinically obese, like not just overweight, clinically obese. And many times I would have these plateaus where I wasn't losing any weight. I didn't feel like I was getting any stronger. And sometimes that would happen for months. But physical fitness is one of those things. Business success is one of those things where persistence pays, that you're going to hit a plateau and it's going to feel like I'm not making any progress. But if you just persist, boom, you're going to break out of it. Sticking with a company where the company culture sucks, you're not going to outlive that. So persistence doesn't make a difference. So if you meet those 3 criteria, only if you met your mile marker, you're not learning anymore, and persistence doesn't pay, then you can quit. And you can adopt those 3 criteria for any behavior or any belief. So let's say, hey, this crazy guy on this podcast said that I should, when I argue with my employees or with my parents or in my case with my mom, I'm not going to think they're judgmental. I'm going to think to myself, they're operating with the tools they have. That's my mantra. I'm going to try it. It seems a little silly. Maybe I don't 100% know if it's true. Doesn't matter. Beliefs are tools, not truths. I'm going to give it a shot for a week. Then when I meet my mile marker Am I still learning anything from it? Right? Am I still, is this changing anything? If I choose to see things through this belief, did it make things better? And then I can assess, you know what? That belief didn't work for me. Let me try a different belief. And so we can keep running these experiments as long as they meet those criteria.
There was a really interesting moment on the internet this week. Mark Andreessen, the famous VC and investor, said introspection can harm your ambition. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that was the gist of it.
Yeah.
Because it can kill the urgency, the ambition. What are your thoughts on that?
I heard that interview, actually. I think that is something you say when you are not suffering. So Mark Andreessen succeeds a lot. And this is what happens with successful people is, the success breeds success. And they start creating this reality distortion field that everything's going great. And if that's where you are, if you're Mark Andreessen, you don't need to read my book. I think you're good. But for the rest of us, when we are in the muck, when we are suffering and we don't know why things aren't getting better, that's where I think we do need to figure out what are our limiting beliefs. Now, I think what I agree with him on is I think we're kind of saying the same thing in some ways, in that I think introspection can go way too far. I think introspection should go to the level of beliefs, and that's good enough. What did your parents do to you, and who said something not nice to you, and how are you traumatized, and what's your diagnosis, and what's your label, and how are you, medicated? And I think, frankly, that's gone too far. That we have gone to too much introspection. You don't need to go back to think about the trauma that happened to you when you were 4 years old. Not in all. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I have not found it useful in my life to keep rehashing and introspecting about what the Freudian method of, tell me about your childhood. I think it's been pretty well debunked by now. And in fact, I think it makes things worse because I can't change the past. Again, I'm waiting for someone who harmed me, no matter what they did. I'm waiting for them to change so I can stop suffering. And that just doesn't work. I can't change the past. And now it turns out we know that our past, our memories are completely wrong. That in fact, every time we dig up a memory, we change it in some way. I'll give you an example. When I was researching this book, I have a friend, Chris. And Chris was telling me about how, I was telling him about the research I was doing. And he told me, you know what, this brings up an interesting experience in my life. He says, I can't cry. And this really has harmed my relationships because whenever I get intimate with a woman and we've been together for a few months and we have some difficulty and she's crying and I can't, and I tell her, I'm so sorry, I can't cry. I'm incapable of crying. Why? Because when Chris was 6 years old, he went to a funeral of his cousin. And he remembers how sad people were at this funeral, and it really impacted him because at 6 years old, he learned that crying is incredibly painful to everybody. So he said, from this day forth, I'm never going to cry again.
At 6?
At 6. He tells this, he's talking to his sister, and he tells her about the difficulty. He had a bad breakup and why this was part of the issues that he told this person he loved that he couldn't cry. And his sister looks at him and says, Chris, this is an older sister. Says, Chris, you weren't at that funeral. You were at home with the babysitter. He had made up this memory. He had contrived this memory out of whole cloth. And
you say justify why he doesn't want to cry? Or
because all of us do this. We think our memory is like a video recorder. It's not. Our memory is constructed. It's incredibly valuable. Just as we don't see reality right now clearly, we definitely don't see the past as it really was.
As you're explaining this to me, I'm like, this makes total sense because how on earth could you just hop in the time machine, go back 20 years and remember it exactly as it happened when two of us could see someone come through the door there, do something, and it to be totally different.
Exactly.
So how on earth are we going to have that reliability?
So this is why we're finding that this trauma-focused therapy is falling flat on its face. That it's not working for many, many people. It actually makes some people worse because I'm constantly rehashing memories that many of them didn't happen the way I remember them. Of course, there's grains of truth and everybody's circumstances is different and this is not medical advice. But for many people, focusing on the past, they're actually creating memories that never even existed, or they're altering a bit of a memory and making it worse and worse and worse every time they think about it. So I agree with Mark Andreessen. If that's what you mean by introspection, I don't think that's helpful at all. What is helpful is what is limiting me right now? What is decreasing my motivation and causing me suffering now? What's that limiting belief I have today?
Again, thanks to our sponsors, Nostra, who take such pride in securing their clients. Kevin talks a lot about immutable backup. It's the difference between recovering from a cyber attack or not. Cybersecurity is made so complicated by so many, and Nostra work to make it easy and flexible so it doesn't stop your business, is affordable and really delivers, because no one wants to get that attack phone call. Now back to the pod.
Before we wrap up, we're almost at the end. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you a quick question. A lot of things I'm hearing from founders now is around focus and being distracted. Obviously, you're the king. You've written 2 bestsellers on that topic. I felt I had to kind of like just chat to you briefly about it. Are we living in a more distracted world? People keep referencing, oh, my phone, it's destroying my focus. Are we living in a more distracted world?
So the answer for every good question is it depends, right? If it was so clear-cut, it wouldn't be a question. It depends who you define as we in that statement. Are we living in a more distracted world? You know, for the vast majority of human history, for 200,000 years, you were privileged to be distracted. Who was distracted? It was people who had time. So up until a few hundred years ago, the vast majority of mankind was living hand to mouth. And so it was only the monks who had extra time to be distracted. And we know that even Gregorian monks were were writing about how distracted they were because they were trying to do the work and they had all kinds of thoughts and gossip and things that they got distracted by. Plato, the philosopher, 2,500 years ago, was complaining about distraction. So our innate tendency towards distraction is within all of us. It's just that we have more time to be distractible. Because if you're working on the fields or you're on a hunt, you don't have time to be distracted.
Is it that we have more time or we have more tools? Essentially, I'm holding my phone.
But I think people have always been distracted. It's just by different things. Before the phone, people were distracted by gossip and soap operas and tabloids and sports, and people still are. We think about all the new technologies. You walk into a pub here during a big footy match. Is that what you call it? Footy?
Football. Yeah.
Football?
Yeah.
Try and turn off the TV. Try and do that. During a big game, try and turn off the TV. They will kill you. You will not leave with your life. What is that?
So you think the phones aren't the problem? It's just the wiring is the same.
Phones are the instrument. And so if you're looking for distraction, it's easier than ever to find. But we know, even statistically, did you know that only 10% of the time that you look at your phone, 10%, is it because of some kind of external trigger, a ping, a ding, a ring, some kind of notification? 10%. 10%. What's the other 90%? 90% of the time that we check our phone, and time studies have validated this, 90% is because of an internal trigger. What's an internal trigger? Boredom, loneliness, fatigue, uncertainty, anxiety. We are looking for relief from these uncomfortable sensations. So whether it's too much news, too much booze, too much football, too much Facebook, you will always look for distraction to take you away from that uncomfortable sensation unless you realize that is the root cause of the problem. You think just people weren't distracted before phones? Of course we were. And if you took phones away, let's say I snap my fingers, boom, there's no more smartphones. Will distraction stop? Will people go back to reading Chaucer and Shakespeare in their spare time? No, because they're looking for something. They don't know how to deal with discomfort. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something about it. That's what Indistractable is all about.
Yeah.
But if we just blame the technology, if we just say, well, the world is more distractible than ever, that is a limiting belief.
And that's becoming the common narrative.
And ironically, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would postulate that that's exactly what the tech companies want. The tech companies want you to believe that you're addicted.
Okay.
Why?
Self-fulfilling belief.
Because you're not going to do anything about it. The word addiction comes from the Latin addictio, which means slave. When I believe I'm addicted, when I believe my brain is being hijacked, it's funny. Did you see that documentary or the film? I don't like to call it a documentary, The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Yes, yeah.
Was this not ironic to anybody else? That the movie that is telling you that technology is addictive is on fucking Netflix? Like, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would posit that this is what they're doing. And in fact, by the way, they interviewed me for 3 hours for that movie. 3 hours I sat down and I told them exactly what people can do to get over distraction. Master internal triggers, make time for traction, hack back external triggers, prevent distraction with PACs. The 4 steps anybody can take to become indistractable. I basically gave them my book. I wasn't in the movie. I was in the credits. You can see my name in the credits, but I wasn't in the movie. Why? It's like you step into a doctor's office and the doctor says, I'm so sorry, you have a terrible disease. And I have the cure, but I'm not going to give it to you. That's malpractice.
They don't want the cure. They don't want you to be suddenly alert and aware.
We idiots, us consumers, us viewers of this, we propagate this. Oh, technology is so addictive. It's hijacking our brains. There's nothing we can do about it. We love that narrative. Why? Our default state of passivity. If Mark Zuckerberg's doing it to me,
what can I do? I'm powerless. I'll just go along for the ride.
Exactly.
Nir, what a bombshell to end on. That was a pleasure. Is the book out now?
It is. Just came out. Brand new.
Excellent. Available wherever you get your books.
Yep, Beyond Belief. And on my website, actually, there's a special incentive. We have a free 5-minute belief change guide. Anybody can get it. It's totally free if you go to my website, Nir spelled like my first name, Nir, and Far. So nirandfar.com/beyond-belief. There's a free 5-minute belief change guide there as well.
Perfect. We'll pop it in the show notes. Nir, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.